Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, July the 6th, 2020, the 14th of Tammuz, 5780. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Hope you are safe with the rising number of corona infections around the world. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are safe. Hope you are keeping healthy. Thanks so much for joining us. I am here in Jerusalem. And part two of the show today, we are going to be talking about all the news here from Israel, as we do each and every week here on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com, here on my show, Israel Uncensored. But before that, we're going to go to the Zoom, and we're actually now live on Facebook as well. Joseph Gitler, he is the founder and chairman of Leket, Israel's national food bank, rescuing healthy food for the needy. And they've played a very, very big role here in Israel over the last several months, especially with the corona pandemic. I mean, they've played a huge role over the last, I don't know, what has it been now? A decade now, at least, perhaps? But they've done so much good work here in Israel, especially now during these very trying times. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. As always, hard to believe it's 17 years already.
Wow, 17 years, more than a decade and a half. Yeah. You guys have been rescuing food, giving people the opportunities to healthy, balanced meals, which they deserve. Those who cannot afford to purchase food. You guys have been doing an amazing job. Tell us, if you can, let's start by talking about this this last crazy period of corona over the last couple of months, and what Leket has been doing, what has been different between this period and life pre-corona.
Oh, thank you for the question. And again, thank you for having me on, as always. Oh, I don't know where to start. You know, it's... Boy, has life changed as we've known it over the last few months. As Leket goes, the major change for us has actually been a pivot in the work that we do. So Leket focuses its energies normally, or maybe this is the new normal, I should say. I don't know how permanent this is going to be, but it looks like it's going to be for a while. We focus our energies in two distinct areas. One is working with the farming community to rescue their excess fruits and vegetables, and then working with the catering community, that could be hotels, army bases, corporate cafeterias, to get their excess meals. And all the food we collect through the hard work of our volunteers or our paid staff, we distribute through a network of 200 feeding charities throughout Israel. Soup kitchens, homeless shelters, Meals on Wheels programs, etc. The major change for us has been that on March 1st, Leket was rescuing on average 10,000 cooked meals a day. By March 15th, with the closing of the economy, we were down to 0. Okay. Now, this is at a time where those who need our help are out of work, and there are more of them. So we made a decision to try and raise funds, which over the last 3 months allowed us to purchase at a minimum 10,000 meals a day, and sometimes we had enough funds to purchase up to 12,000 meals a day to cover and increase those in need during the time. As we thought the virus was waning in Israel, well, it did wane, but now it's come back with a fury. We started to see army bases reopening, hotels reopening, corporate cafeterias reopening, and our meal rescue started to tick up, whereas 2 weeks ago, we were back up to 4,000 meals a day. And so our purchased meals started to drop. Unfortunately, with this new rise and the new restrictions and people getting nervous and companies telling their employees, don't come to work from home, we're seeing a drop again and again at a time where there's so much pain, economic pain throughout the country. So we're going through a very, very difficult time at Leket right now and the people we serve. The flip side, and then I'll stop talking, is my mother always said, you're good at talking. So
you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. The flip side is actually the agriculture, because what happens is, despite the increase in purchase at supermarkets that we've all been doing because we've all been at home more and we've all been going out to eat less and people are working from home, People eat more when they eat in a corporate cafeteria, when they're at a hotel, when they're at a simcha. It's just the way it is. And so actually farmers have seen a huge decrease in demand. The purchases from the home is not making it up for the decrease in the industrial sector. And so where we've had almost no opportunities in rescuing food, we've had a huge increase in the amount of agriculture, to the point where in June, we redistributed 2,500 tons of fruits and vegetables, which was almost 1,000 tons more than the most we've ever done in a month. So
Wow.
we are reallocating resources, financial resources, to distribute more fruits and vegetables, while at the same time just really being worried about the increase in unemployment and government benefits and when they're going to end. And it's just a scary time for those of us who are in the social services sector. It just really is.
Yeah, it's certainly a scary time, and we don't know what the future holds. And one day, as you mentioned, you have hotels who are opening and you have things starting to open. And then the government is supposed to, I think, meet today to discuss somewhat of a plan for the next couple of weeks, and they may turn around and reclose everything that's been open. So I know there's uncertainty, and you mentioned that there's definitely a big increase in what people are consuming. Certainly when you're cooped up at home, people are eating more. I know, for example, that we actually yesterday we had to call the gas company and come and deliver another balloon of gas, and the guy said, you know, that's not unusual during this corona period, because people are cooking more at home, more using more, in this case gas, or I know water that we order May Eden, going through more and more bottles of water. So I can only imagine the strain put on an organization like yourself that has to, you know, count on those items, whether you're talking about purchased meals or fresh produce. You know, it must be extremely challenging during this corona period.
You know, I'll add to that. That's, you know, sort of the third whammy right now is we and charities throughout the world are very concerned about our future financial support from our supporters.
Right.
You know, like all crises, the first wave brought an avalanche of support for Leket, now all spent. Okay. And we're seeing what other big charities around the world, like the UJ Federation of New York, which over the last few weeks fired 50 employees. We don't know. It's such an unknown what philanthropy is going to look like, big or small. You know, so one of the things we're doing now is putting more pressure on the government for more government support toward food support. But I understand, you know, more government support for Leket means more taxes for you. So people don't know. People just say government, government, government. But, you know, either the government prints money and inflation starts to grow, and then those who are the weakest, so now they can't afford things because things have become more expensive. People don't always understand those economic basics, or the government starts to spend more money, which it doesn't have, and either, you know, has to sell bonds or has to raise our taxes. It's not like the government, and we're still not America or Canada or Europe, right? We're successful. We're not rich like them. We're just not there yet. And we have, unfortunately, so many other issues that surround us. And we can't let our guard down because, you know, our friends and neighbors, you know, they see us at a weak spot, and okay, well, you know, we'll lob a couple missiles over on that, and that takes over the news of the day. When unfortunately, really now our focus as a nation needs to be on protecting our health, protecting our economy, and making sure that the weakest among us, you know, I take an example. I take the elderly. Okay, no elderly person in this country should be leaving their house. Okay.
Right.
But if they feel like they have to leave their house because they need to work, or because they need to get food from a soup kitchen, or God knows, beg on the streets, you know, that's a calamity. Okay, we have to do everything in our power. So Leket, as an example, during the height of the crisis, I would say about 50% of the meals that we were delivering were going to elderly who we normally give them food in some kind of center. They can't go to those centers now. They shouldn't be going into those centers. And that put a massive strain on us because we were doing door-to-door deliveries. Leket doesn't normally do that. Thankfully, a lot of municipalities recruited volunteers and picked up a lot of the slack. But, that was yesterday's news. And that's always what it is. Yesterday, it's you can't keep a crisis mode for so long, right? Now it's just a new reality. And what are the Lekets of the world going to do to make sure that the most vulnerable among us are taken care of? And that is scary right now.
You mentioned the government. You mentioned the news cycle, and I want to know if we could touch on a little controversy with your permission,
please.
If you're okay with that. I mean, Leket sent out a press release, and there was an article. It didn't mention you by name, but it mentioned some.
I don't make trouble. I don't make trouble. Well, I need to keep in people's good graces.
Okay, but I'm going to cause a little trouble.
That's fine.
Stop me at any time. Leket released a press release. I think it was yesterday, as a result of, and again, it was covered in today's Jerusalem Post, not mentioning Leket by name, but the comments were covered by a certain government minister who claimed that those who have reached the point of starvation and have nothing to eat are talking nonsense. He made these comments, I think, on a Friday evening news program. So one government minister is saying, relax, people aren't starving. That's not the case. And Leket responded to that. And I'll let you go ahead and just share your response with one man's opinion, who is actually known for making some controversial statements over the years in regards to different populations in Israel. But just your take on somebody. It doesn't have to be a government minister. Just anybody what would your response be to anybody who says, well, there aren't food in Israel. It's not really a problem. It's not really an issue. People aren't starving. That's not the case. How would you respond to that?
Look, I happen to agree with him that no one's starving. We're not Haiti. We're not Sudan. But we have a lot of people on very limited means struggling to make ends meet. And they need to skip meals, which is unacceptable in a country like Israel, or they're buying the wrong food. And I would imagine today with this new crisis, there may be people slipping through the cracks who really have next to nothing. Okay, the government very much relies on private organizations like Leket to pick up the slack. But I can guarantee you now that with this situation and with many, many more people unemployed and many more people having their salaries cut, that there is no way the Lekets of the world and all our wonderful partners throughout the country are going to be able to pick up the slack. So there's always a lot of need in Israel. Now there's increased need. And frankly, we need the government's help. Look, I know the minister who said that they worked him hard. Okay. They were going really tough on him, and he's a hot under the collar guy, and we could all break. But I'll tell you, I am in Ra'anana. And I'm involved. This is my life. I've dedicated my life to this, but it's not like, and yeah, people knock on my door asking for tzedakah, but it's not like I see in my day-to-day people who don't have any food. I'm not in the right place. I don't live in the right community for that. Is there some need in Ra'anana? Sure. Are there people who need help? Yes, and they get help. But there are other places in Israel where you just see it on the streets. Okay. And so I think a typical Israeli, thank God, most Israelis, 75, 80% of Israelis, maybe until it hit the corona, maybe even higher than that, they don't see it, they don't feel it, they don't know about it. Thank God. That's what we want. But the 10 or 15% of Israelis who are feeling this need day in, day out, pre-corona, and more so now, they're not a voting bloc. The poor aren't a voting bloc. We don't hear from them that much. Even in these articles, right? It's not like they interviewed the poor. All the articles. I have an article right now in front of me from Haaretz, which talks about the crisis is exacting a price from women and the elderly, right? That they're getting hit even harder. So it's not like in the article they even interviewed people like that. Okay, people like that, they don't want to be interviewed. They don't want to talk about it. And what's the comment? A society is judged by the way it takes care of its most vulnerable. And this is the Jewish state, and we better get our act together, and we better get it quickly. And we can't rely only on overseas philanthropy right now. The whole world is being hit. Israelis have stepped up. We got more money from Israelis than we did from overseas during the crisis. I'm happy to say that. People understand that. You know what? Now we're in the second wave, the third wave, the permanent wave, whatever the heck you want to call it. we need the people of the state of Israel and the government of the state of Israel to realize we're in a long-term predicament. We need a plan, okay, to help us in the short and long term to strengthen the Lekets. I don't even care about Leket. It's irrelevant. I don't need the money. I mean, I need the money to run my operation. But if the government announced tomorrow we're spending 500 million shekels buying meals and we're doing it ourselves, I'll clap my hands. I don't need. It doesn't have to go through. I'm not trying to tell everyone I have a big budget. Like, I don't care. That's not important. So we do call on the government to open its purse strings and make sure that those who need help now are getting it.
In the meantime, and we are unfortunately out of time, let's let people know how they can get involved in Leket until the government does put together some sort of plan. You guys are out and about and active and need the help. And it's really it's unbelievable that Israelis themselves have stepped up to help the organization. We are speaking to Joseph Gitler, founder and chairman of Leket, Israel's National Food Bank. What is the best way people can get in touch with you if they want to support your unbelievable initiatives to feed the hungry here in Israel?
Thank you again for the opportunity. Our website, www.leket.org. And my personal email, Joseph, Joseph, @leket.org. I welcome questions, comments, suggestions.
Well, you're a busy guy, and I appreciate your time here this morning. And stay safe, stay healthy, and only good things, and keep up the holy work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
We are going to take a break right now. My name is Josh Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. We're broadcasting right now on Facebook Live to the world. Thanks so much for joining us. Second part of the show, we're going to talk about Corona. We're going to talk about applying sovereignty, everything else making the news here in Israel and throughout the Middle East. Big shout out to Ben Bresky behind the scenes, who arranges it so that we can do live Zoom and Facebook and all the other stuff we do behind the scenes. Short break, and we'll be right back with the news. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Who are we as a people? Who are we as a nation? What does it mean to be a Jew in the land of Israel, as a Jew in Judea? What is our message to the world? We're finally back in our land, and we get to ask these questions.
Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to make Judea and Samaria an issue for the entire world, to know that the Jews have a place in the world.
Israel Inspired with Aryeh Bromwitz and Jeremy Gimpel on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
And we are back. Josh Hasten here. Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, July the 6th, 2020, the 14th of Tammuz, 5780. Getting to the news, everything happening here in Israel last night. Terrorists in Gaza launched at least 3 rockets towards Israeli territory. 2 rockets were fired initially, followed by a third later on Sunday night. Warning sirens were sounded in multiple Israeli towns in the Sdot Negev Regional Council near Gaza. Residents reported hearing explosions in the area. Authorities said 2 rockets landed in open areas, with the third projectile intercepted by the Iron Dome. No injuries, but of course the trauma once again of thousands of people running for their lives thanks to rocket attacks from the terrorists in Gaza. Israel National News reports IAF fighter jets and helicopters last night attacked Hamas targets in Gaza. IDF spokesman's unit said that Hamas's underground infrastructure was attacked as well. Here we go again. Down on that southern border, which has been going on now for 19 years of rocket attacks, of course. Many more rockets once Israel pulled out of Gush Katif with no Jews living in Gaza anymore, and here we are on the verge of commemorating 15 years since that horrible event and tragic mistake by the Israeli government to pull all Jews out of Gaza and turn the keys over to the Palestinian Authority. And of course, later on, Gaza fell into the hands of Hamas. Rockets increased by 500%, 3 military operations, and so much more death and destruction caused by the various terror groups down in Gaza, and it's just never going away. Corona here in Israel, the coronavirus. Did it ever go away? Were we on the verge of beating it? I don't know. We may never know, but nevertheless, the deputy health minister yesterday said that this so-called second wave, which we are experiencing now, is worse than the first, and mass gatherings must stop. This reported by Times of Israel. Yoav Keach on Sunday warned that the second wave of corona was worse than the first, and we have to do what is necessary to slow down the rate of infection. Perhaps another future full lockdown. Apparently, in the next 2 weeks, we'll know whether Israel will need to go back to a full lockdown. Over 11,000 active cases right now. We were down under 2,000, if I'm not mistaken, just several weeks ago. And here we are. The number of sick have doubled in the last 10 days. A larger number of new serious cases, according to the deputy health minister. Infections are spreading all over the country, said Kish. So, ladies and gentlemen, corona is here. It is not going anywhere. It is getting worse. And how will we handle it? I read an op-ed in the Jerusalem Post over the weekend, Naftali Bennett, and I think he has the key. He put together a 15-point plan on how Israel can defeat the coronavirus, or at least manage the coronavirus. I think Naftali Bennett should be put in charge of the whole thing, based on what I read. Go check him out. If you can Google Naftali Bennett, Jerusalem Post, Corona, I'm sure it'll come up. His 15-point plan, I think he's the one that should be in charge. Prime Minister Netanyahu will convene the cabinet today to continue discussions on how to handle the outbreak. Yesterday, the Knesset Coronavirus Committee met and approved restrictions. We're talking about event halls, bars and clubs, and synagogues and other prayer houses limited to 50 people. Any other gatherings in closed spaces now limited to 20 people. So we are headed in the wrong direction. I know it's much worse in terms of the numbers in the United States, for example, with, I think on Friday they had over 50,000 people who were reported as infected in one day alone. Those numbers are insane, but it is not a great situation here in Israel. From where I'm sitting, the way it looks is pretty bad. So whether we're waiting for that vaccine, I don't know. I still believe the vaccine is going to come out of Israel. Hopefully very, very soon, because it looks like we need it. And here you have the alternate Prime Minister, Defense Minister Benny Gantz, drawing a relation between the corona situation and Israel's plan to apply sovereignty to communities in Judea and Samaria, which could have happened as soon as July the 1st, and here we are on the 6th, and nothing has happened. But Defense Minister and alternate Prime Minister Benny Gantz told Israeli media on Sunday morning that U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan should not be advanced during the COVID-19 pandemic, even though he believes that the president's plan, President Trump's plan, is the way to go. He said, quote, "Right now we have to deal with the giant crisis we have found ourselves in, COVID-19, and then we can continue to head afterwards to where we need to go," he told Khan's Reshet Bet radio program. So my problem with this is that as bad as Corona might be, this seems like another excuse. You know, we hear this, and we've heard this for many, many years. Those who do not want to apply sovereignty to Judea and Samaria, who are against Jews building homes in Judea. We've heard it time and time again. They've said now is not the right time. And for them, it's never the right time to apply sovereignty. It's never the right time to build Jewish homes in Judea. There's always an excuse and always a reason. Tensions are too high. It'll damage our relationships with certain countries. There's a coronavirus. We've heard all the excuses for so many years as to why we should not apply sovereignty or allow Jews to build homes or pergolas or whatever it is in Judea and Samaria. Enough with the excuses. Enough with saying it's not the right time, because for them it will never be the right time. It doesn't matter. It could be in another 50 years, another 20 years, another 100 years. There will always be an excuse why not to apply sovereignty. And I say we should apply sovereignty now, even as, once again, I think this is the third week in a row we're reading about U.S. congressmen from the Democratic Party, the Democrats who are against Israel applying sovereignty. And in this case, reported by the Jerusalem Post, a group of 13 Senate Democrats filed an amendment to the fiscal year 2021 National Defense Authorization Act to prohibit Israel from using U.S. security assistance funds for what they call annexation of parts of the, what they call West Bank, Judea and Samaria. This is led by Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat from, I think, Maryland. He said, "I am a strong supporter of robust security assistance to our friend and ally Israel. However, I oppose the use of any of these funds to support the unilateral annexation of, get this, Palestinian territories by Israel." So number one, he is automatically referring to Judea and Samaria as Palestinian territories. He doesn't even do us the favor of saying, let's say, disputed territories. He's essentially making the case that Israel is illegally conquering territory belonging to some other country, perhaps a foreign entity. And of course, that is not the case. He has the story all mixed up. And then you have, again, the opposition of a unilateral move. But when Israel pulled out of Gaza unilaterally, nobody on the Democrat side had any problem with that. So, more pressure from the Democrats. We see where that party is going. They keep saying, well, we're great Israel supporters, but. There's always a but at the end of that sentence. We love Israel. We support Israel, but. That's what I've read, I believe, on this program 3 weeks in a row. 3 different attempts, or petitions, or letters, or amendments, or whatever it is that the Democrats are coming out with against Jews and the right of Jews to live and expand and grow in Judea. And it's happening each and every week. You have these people opposed to Israel applying its sovereignty, but they're far less quiet. Brings me to the next story here from Palestinian Media Watch. I don't see any letters going out about this Palestinian Authority music video, which includes actual footage of stabbing attacks. And the theme here is repetition. The PA excels in repetition, says this report. One message that is repeating now is the value of martyrdom for Allah. For example, one music video broadcast by PATV repeats to Palestinians the ideal of dying as, quote, martyrs for Palestine. Martyr, we must follow in your footsteps. And here you have a music video encouraging the next generation of Arab children to grow up and to die, to kill themselves, as long as they take Israelis with them, Jews with them. Be a martyr for Palestine. And those who carry out these attacks are seen on television as heroes of the community. And that's what you have here on a daily basis coming out of the Palestinian Authority, certainly Hamas, but I don't see any letters from any Democrats, any senators, any congresspeople, or anybody really condemning the daily incitement against Israel, against the Jews, coming out of the official Palestinian Authority. I see a lot of talk about making concessions to them or building them a state. That's fine. That's okay. But when it comes to incitement to violence against Jews and the preaching of hatred to the next generation, crickets, folks. I don't see any reports of condemnation of these people. I just see more and more groveling, more and more attempts to get these people to the negotiating table, and no attempts, or very few attempts, to get them to stop their incitement to hatred. I shouldn't say no attempts. There are people out there who care, but it just seems that the voices for concessions and appeasement and giving the PA a seat around the table in many camps, at least those voices seem louder than those who call the Palestinian Authority out for who they are. Maybe the media just reports what the Democrats are saying, and maybe there are many others who are openly condemning these people. I mean, the Trump administration for sure condemns these people, yet on the other hand, offering them a seat at the table I think is a huge mistake. I don't think it's the way to go. I think the PA needs a one-way ticket out of here, and I will stick to that for as long as I can broadcast. Finishing the program here with some positive news. This morning, Israel launched the Ofek 16 satellite. It was a successful launch. The Space Administration and the Defense Research and Development Body of the Israeli Ministry of Defense and Israel Aerospace Industries successfully launched the Ofek 16 reconnaissance satellite early Monday morning at 4 a.m. from the center of the country. And here we have more Israeli technology, more security, protecting the people of Israel from above the atmosphere. So that's the good news as we finish up today's program. Yet again, more Israeli ingenuity, more technology, and doing more to keep not only Israel but the world a safer place. Big shout out to Benjamin Bresky, engineer extraordinaire, Tabitha Epstein for all the work she does behind the scenes. My name is Josh Hasten. For July the 6th, 2020, the 14th of Tammuz, 5780. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, or Josh Hasten, Israel Advocacy and Journalism, on Twitter at Josh Hasten, and on Instagram as well. For those who are fasting this Thursday on the 17th day of Tammuz, I hope you have a meaningful fast. Everyone else out there in the wonderful world of ours, most importantly, between now and when we speak again, please God, next Monday, everyone out there, be safe. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. Shalom, shalom from a beautiful day here in Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people.
The Land of Israel Network is your connection to Israel and the Jewish world. Listen to our show hosts, Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel, Eve Harrow, Josh Hasten, Shlomo Katz, Mike Foyer, Yishai Fleischer, and more. Keeping you up to date on news, politics, and spirituality. That's the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com, broadcasting the truth and beauty of Israel to the world.